Stompy Jones. Mo's Magic says sexy. Thanks, man. So for this kind of thing, I just use like a dry brush. Mind you, about hobbies, I'm using the smaller one. And I'm gonna take Daredevil and put him somewhere where I can look at him, so I can get reasonably similar bases out of these guys. So I'm gonna just kind of put him over here so I can look at it. So pretty much all I'm gonna do is just take some black, some blue, some blue-black, right? Love minis. Love minis. I'm gonna put some white in there. Yo, the sickest gif in the game. Make this some strong woman love in the chat for Love Minis exclamation point best mod beast mod. Now Love Minis, I'm just gonna put a bunch of wet ass paint on this big circle brush and just throw it on there. Okay, I like the big round dry brush for this kind of stuff. I'm going on pretty hot and heavy. And I'm going to be careful not to get it on his feet. And with this smaller dry brush, that's pretty easy to do. You can get kind of close. But it's on there pretty serious amount on there, right? I'm just using light brush pressure to kind of just fan it out. And now what I'll do is I'll rinse the brush again. Get that gray off of it. Just dry it up. Use a paper towel. Now let's send some white in there. Just right off the palette again, right up there. And we're gonna just stipple right in. Maybe pick up a little bit more blue. Just kind of soften the shadow work right there. Just with some stipples. See, it's just kind of like a rough blend. And it's okay if it's not perfect because it's stonework. You see? And what we laid down, it should be still wet enough to interact with. So you can go back in time, pick up some of the mid-tone, kind of just soften that blend. Now here, it's going to be a little trickier because his foot's in the way, so be careful as you move in. And again, pick up some of the mid-tones. Just kind of soften it right here. Gotta just get a nice quick lay down. We'll set this dry brush down. I'm gonna rinse it up real quick. Stompy Jones. I keep looking up there, the last comments. So every time I look up, I see a highlighted comment. It's used the same one. Now I love minis. I'm gonna take my number 4 with some Saturday Fun. Rinse some of the soap off of it because I had some conditioner on it, right? Ooh, that paint pot is dirty as fuck. I need to rinse my paint pots out. So I need to get a little bit more detail work up against his foot right here. So we'll take the mid-tone and we'll just kind of softly stipple it in around his foot. Take some of this highlight and just kind of work our way in. And again, it's okay if it's kind of textured, right? If it's kind of like beat up, like it's not perfectly blended, that's fine. I'm gonna take a little bold titanium white and get a new little puddle down. So it's a little bit heavier bodied. Right there. And I'm gonna use that to just kind of stipple maybe a little bit more moisture, maybe blend it into the midtone a little bit. Maybe pick up a little squirt of water on the wet palette. See, just kind of give it a nice stipple. See that? Take some of the mid-tone with the initial base coat. Still some hot and heavy inside these this grout. You see that? Take some of that highlight, stipple, stipple, stipple while it's still nice and wet, and get a nice blend going. Pick up some of that raw dog white. We're just dragging our heart pull in kind of aggressively. Nothing too precise just yet. When a base is like this, is taking up so much real estate on the model, you see how it's just like it's almost like the base is a kind of like a frame, like where it's like Spartan, it's like minimalistic, right? So these types of bases are all about just pointing the focal point back to the model. So you just want a nice clean slate here, and I use neutral colors usually. Jay Beezy, what's up, man? Perfectly flat, right? Just comic book frame. And I'm just trying to keep it neutral and chill, send it to the background, and he's got one little ledge he's standing on. We'll make sure that looks nice. And we're just gonna make sure we have some reasonable blends. Like this side right here. We're gonna let that dry a little bit because it's kind of semi-dry now. Like I talked too much, I waited too long there. So let's just go to this piece of debris here. Now these are fun to take them off of the color of the base, okay? So this is like a blue-gray. So maybe like a brown concrete kind of color there, right? And we could probably just make something. Like, check it out. Here's some yellow, some red, some black, some white. Maybe a touch of blue just to kind of green it up a little bit. There you go. And what we'll do is we'll just kind of carefully paint this thing. Hot and heavy. Super opaque. Mostly heart pull. And since I did get some of the paint on this thing, it's going to just kind of interact with it carefully. Just be careful. Light brush pressure. Crank the light so you can see that easier. Sorry, guys. And so if there is a little feature like this, you know, make sure to just paint it a little bit different than the base. It's obviously like a piece of a building just kind of like laying here for no fucking reason. It doesn't quite make sense. Like Daredevil's base is even sillier with like a random tombstone in the middle. Shout out to Hit to Wound. Thank you for the resub, brother. So we just made this kind of weird green-gray color. Kind of a warm gray. Pick up a little bit of our white. And we can just kind of bully some of that in while it's still wet. It's just some stipples. Maybe pick up a little moisture. We'll go back in time to the base coat. Just kind of swirl that in here toward the top. Go back to the base coat, maybe get a little bit of a darker edge on this side, but let some of that highlight show up. Keeping it nice, hot and heavy. We pick up a little bit more white. Let's run a quick heart pull right here. Just run a little bit more opaque white right in that seam. Using pretty light brush pressure here. Go back to the base coat color. Just kind of stipple off and soften that line. A little bit more white. Get a nice little blend right there. Shout out to JBZ. Thank you so much, homie. Let's just kind of stipple on some of these rocks. They're part of the rubble. Broken off pieces of the superstructure there. That's how I'm treating them, at least. It's a good base coat. Okay, let's rinse the brush. Recoil. Mo's Magic is a big Marvel Crisis super fan. Let's just blast my brush with some pure water real quick. Okay. Now Daredevil, a little bit grayer, less blue. So I'm gonna just get a light gray going here. I'm gonna lower the opacity a little bit here. So there's plenty of water in the mix. And it's not nearly as opaque as it looks right now. It's pretty watered down. I'm going to use that moisture to just get a quick capillary blend. It's very easy to do when you keep it this wet. But its impact is going to be minimal. Not nearly as this aggressive, but it will interact with the stuff with what we've already done because they're pretty much the same color. So I'm just going to put a little strip of almost white. Just kind of soften that with a little bit more moisture. I'll let that just dry for a minute. That was just water. You know, all of that was just water. Just try to kind of grade up a little bit. So a more neutral top coat here of super low opacity wet paint. So it's going to create a little filter. And I'm taking some of our initial base coat in here to get the dark edge filtered. Oh, that's interesting. A little bit of my brown got in there. So that tile is different than that tile. I really like that actually. That's really cool. So maybe I'll keep that going. So that these opposites are like that. Just kind of a happy accident. Some of my warm gray kind of got snuck in the mix by accident. Put a little strip of white. That's pretty cool. So let me just kind of make sure that doesn't happen again. Let's just get a little black white over here. So we have more of a neutral base. And again, this is very transparent paint. Mostly water. Let me turn some of this light down. More accurate right here. Okay, so he's got all sorts of cracks and things. So let me rinse this brush again. Cajun in chat. What's up, Cajun? Ben 405, J Duval. Union Pivo. What's up? Level of detail. What's up, homie? So we're working on our Bullseye. Daredevil combo pack. Get that Marvel Crisis fix. Okay, so what we need to do is make the dark things darker. Real simple. We'll grab some of the transparent black right here. Pretty much just raw dog it right off the palette, right inside of here in this gutter. I'm using my 18-0 heart pull tip of the brush. Got a little out of bounds, that's okay. I do this before I do any kind of edge highlighting because the edge highlighting can fix the mistakes of this step. And our whole Marvel Crisis theme is like almost black lining, right? We want really hard lines. want that comic style. Rotate the model, looking for easy paths back to your heart. Paint's a little wet there still, so that mixed in with the gray. It's okay. Doesn't hurt anything. Always take a second to rotate the model to facilitate an easier line. Much easier to pull back like this. There we go. Get those cracks. Now I'll make a little bit more of a respectful version of that mix. I'll take the initial base coat with some black in it. Maybe a little bit of moisture. Semi-opaque. A little wet. And there's all sorts of little divots. Just stipple right into those, okay? They're big, exaggerated textures of the base. You can kind of see them everywhere. Some of them are bigger than others. They're not all created equal. I'm not going to hit every single one of them. Just the ones that seem interesting to me. Okay, well, another big thing I'm going to do here is get some more moisture, get our respectful dark edge going, semi-opaque, kind of wet. Is I'm going to try to make a frame around the piece of rubble he's standing on. So I'm going to try to put a nice dark edge around it. And so this isn't pure black just yet. This has got some of the initial gray mixed in. And what I want is a nice border around it. So I'm going to use the tip of my brush, maybe some stipple strokes, always from the heart pull position. I'm going to use modified sewing machine stroke. And get a nice clean border built around it. Kind of lift it from the base. Union Pivot says, before I forget, I really appreciate how to thin paint YouTube. It's awesome. Oh man, thanks, brother. Are you new here on Twitch? Welcome to the show if you are. Let's get a little bit more transparent black. Reinforce a couple of these cracks from earlier. Like I said, it's pretty aggressive and bordering on preposterous, but you'll see. See, like, look at Daredevil. Same thing, but we're going to have to do something else. You see, even the tombstone has a border around it. Same kind of thing. So let's rinse the brush again. Now let's move back into our white. Maybe pick up some of that initial base coat so we can kind of build like a nice respectful highlight here. High opacity, low moisture. Let's load the tip of the brush, and we're going to go to the heart pull. And we're going to put a bottom highlight on this crack here because this is the viewing angle. So this is the top shelf highlight. Like that. So you're just using heart pull and maybe a little stipple. Gives you that three-dimensionality. Now, same thing on all these little divots that we decided to put dark in. You're gonna just want to kind of stipple under them. this all sewing machine. And look, now they look all three-dimensional and shit. Sometimes when I'm doing this kind of work, I take a little flow improver, put it on my palette so I can just occasionally dip my brush in it just to kind of keep the paint from drying in my bristles. So again, mostly opaque, mostly dry. Quick heart pull right here. Now this one, we can probably trace this one. Just make sure that you have opaque and not that wet paint, okay? Kind of on the dry side. And we can probably scrape that seam, but make sure your tip doesn't penetrate too far and paint the other side. So we can just rest it right there. And it's a little soft for this strategy, so I may have to repair that. So that's the problem when, you know, sometimes you think a tracer is the move, but it's too round, right? And so heart pulling would have probably been the strategy there. It doesn't look too bad. I'm just gonna work an actual heart pull right here. Let's get a little bit straight up white. Let's see if we can actually, maybe if I go from this angle, I can run a quick tracer. See, I'm just gonna ride that rail. Hold your breath, swing it from right to left. Pow, son. Looks good. Recall, DD's base is crazy. Just a tombstone in the middle of some concrete. What's the deal with that, right? Like zombie apocalypse, dog. That's what I'm saying. It's like a crypt is bursting out. You know, like ancient burial ground under, I don't know. I also think it is crazy. Same deal right here. Let's get into the heart pull stipple stroke. Let's do the top shelf highlight right there. Maybe a little bit right here. Let's get these little divots with a quick sewing machine stroke. Let's get a quick tracer going right here. I'm just kind of riding the rail, modified tracer heart pull right there. Here, we're going to just hold our breath, swing it from right to left, and ride that rail. Rotate. Let's look for a quick heart pull. Now, some of these lines might get a little out of whack. We can always tone them down later. Just pretend it's all fine now. Mio Man in chat, what up, player? Jack Dempsey. Is it part of a Gothic building? Oh, it might not even be a tombstone. That's a great point, Mo's Magic, because it actually has like possibly stained glass in it, or just a mural of some type. So it might not even be a tombstone. It might just be the top of a building. You're totally right. It's not a tombstone. It's part of the same building that is. It's like some fucking spire that broke off. But where did the dirt come from? It gets broken through the concrete. Okay, so this is the viewing angle. Let's put our highlight right here. Let's do our sewing machine stipples. Let's ride the rail right here with a quick tracer technique. Hold your breath, swing it from right to left. Look for that horizontal angle. Right here, we're going to go traditional heart pull. Let me get a little bit of flow improver on the tip of my brush. If I can find where I put it on my palette. Yo, Dub Sherman, 46 months back to back. What a legend. What a legend. Let's get to that horizontal plane. Let's hold our breath, swing it from right to left, right here. Trace that edge. Let's move up right here. Traditional heart pull for Dub Sherman. Get some strong man love in chat. Pow! Pow! Here's a long pull right here. Load out the brush a little bit. Let's get our tracer technique locked in right here from my man Dub Sherman right here. We're gonna ride this rail horizontal, pulling back right to left because I am indeed right-handed. Hold your breath, swing it from right to left. You're left-handed. You need to go a little harder than that. Let's rinse the brush. Get some of that dried ass paint out of it. Sometimes the paint will dry up on your dry brush like this. I mean your edge highlighter. Let's try it again. Now, he's got plenty of these little pits in the stone, so let's hit them all with the top shelf. Under highlight right here. Some stipples. Now, you rotate back here. This is the viewing angle, so we'll just invert it on this side. Now let's go back and time a step, kind of recurate some of these. Go back to our base coat, get something that pretty thinned down with a lot of water. I'm going to send a filter over that line just to kind of blur it so it's not so out of whack. So anywhere I felt like my line shape got a little wacky, just going to curate it with a quick filter to kind of send the line to the background. Just sending some low opacity paint right over it. Pow. Now, here's the fun shit. So I like to put like kind of a preposterous line around the base feature. So this can get a little tricky. So I'm going to reach in here and I'm going to draw a line right up against our shadow line. So when we pen washed it, I put a line really right up against it. You see that? And now I'm giving it this artificial border. Like it's sunk in slightly. You see that? And so we're not erasing the shadow. We're just kind of hitting right where the shadow meets the concrete. Now, hold on a second. Let me rinse this brush. This brush is getting kind of wacky. I'm using just blasting it with fire hose technique. Some paint's drying right up in the ferrule because that's the nature of this type of painting with this little synthetic brush. Is a lot of times you're going to accidentally let paint dry right up against the metal there, and once you let that starts happening a few times, that's it. Like the brush is on its death throes. So I'm just gonna just quickly take a moment to get some of that paint cleaned out of there. From experience, you can basically keep this brush operational for months or for days, depending on how you clean it. And so I'm getting blue paint out of there right now because it hasn't fully had time to really dry in there. And I've got like 99% of the paint out of that tip. The nature of this, high opacity, low moisture type of painting is that you can absolutely fuck your brush up quick. And that's why we use these cheap little synthetic brushes. Who's gonna come out? Dr. Doom? Oh man, Dr. Doom would be sick. They do the Fantastic Four. According to Mo's Magic. So let's just reinforce. That kind of fake border that we created. Now let's go back up to this kind of weird concrete color we made. Put some white in there. Shout out to HXHDHDHDWY. Might not be a real person. Let's run a quick tracer right there. Rotate here. Let's see if we can get a little bit of a highlight going. Rotate. Rotate. Look for that tracer. Let's look for a little heart pull right here. Tracer right here. Let's get this thing right here. You really don't have to do much more than that. For the most part, it rides. Now there's a spot right here that I think could be a little better. So let's thin down the paint a little bit, get a glaze going, take some of the moisture off. let's just kind of introduce some low opacity stipples right here. Just kind of work with the texture instead of trying to smooth it out too much. We'll let there be some really faint distortion here. Kind of seal up that irregularity in the blend there behind his foot. I'm with it. HXHDHDHDWY says hi. My brother made the account and just pushed keys to get the name. Tight. I want to do a name change. Let's take some cold black. Some transparent black. We're just kind of raw dogging it right off the canvas. Almost using the transparent black as water. Looking for a pretty seriously thick base coat here. And as long as you just kind of keep softening the wet edge and you move quick with light brush pressure, it's not going to get textured. It's going to be fine. And we're just using that heart pull strategy again. And I'm trying to go pretty hardcore here because I like the instant coverage we get, just smoothing out anything I see that doesn't look good. Again, just a little cold black and transparent black. It's like basically using black ink to thin down black paint. So it just kind of stays ultra black. And it doesn't dilute and lose any kind of opacity because you're not using water. It's like you're using black water. Again, let me get the lighting more correct. So I think I'm still going to clean up some of the white accents on this guy. But I'm pretty happy with how our Bullseye looks, especially compared to the box art. You know, it's my boy Lyndon. So we'll set up to do a whip session here in a second while I let that base rim dry. Anybody new here, thanks for tuning in. Exclamation point info, exclamation point 2x dogs. Sunshine Grenadier, the fucking legend. Yo, Sunshine Grenadier, the fucking beast. 2x Yo Dogs, my man knows how to be efficient with his donations. His Bullseye looking swole. He is a fucking... He's Professor Swolstein for sure. And you see, I don't really have a problem with Bullseye's box art. I think they did a good job, better than Daredevil, on keeping him jacked. But after having painted both, his muscles are easier to access than Daredevil's. So I think it's a little easier to get those shine lines. Sunshine Grenadier. But where they really fucking dropped the ball is his face. Like, they did that thing where they just painted it all like elf flesh and washed it. And his teeth look... He just looks like a fucking idiot. Like a stupid fucking meaningless bad guy. No threat. Threat level 0. Whereas mine... As I showed you guys yesterday, how we curated his skin, and look at how much more menacing our Bullseye is. Like, our dude looks scary. Our dude has menace. Right? We made sure that our comic book lines were perfect and flawless, really honoring the source material. He is jacked beyond belief. Suddenly, this like weird nonchalant pose he has whole new meaning with that maniacal grin being curated correctly. Like, he is maniacal, right? And we were able to finish up his daggers and everything. So one of the other things I think that they kind of struggled with was the bands in his white. You see, like, there's a little picture of him here, and you see there's like clear blue underneath that. So we did a little bit more work to make sure our blue lines were a little bit more predominant, right? Kind of where theirs were more faint. And also, they didn't even bother getting the center of his bullseye to be black. It should be the dark blue. It's just all white. You know, where ours actually is correct. So, and get you set up on my calendar over Zoom. So I'm going to take a little white, keeping it reasonably opaque, and I'm just going to carefully kind of tease out things. I'll move this out of the way. It's kind of getting in my way. So like here, I can clean up this edge with a little heart pull right there. You see that tight little white opaque line? So like just to kind of like straighten that edge, that shelf out. There's a couple of things that on the model that are like that I want to clean up. And I'm just using my eyes, you know. And really making sure to just tighten things up. Just keeping it opaque, keeping it mostly dry. And see, we're leaving some of those shadows intact, but just making sure it's not like a gray boot. It's still a white boot, right? Bazzuti says, day one, airbrush. It's a good explanation with hands-on practice during the class. Yep, he knows. And Dave, I'll tell you what, man, most people that come to me, and that's literally their situation, is like, I only use my airbrush for basing and priming. And it's pretty common, 99% of the time. Heart pull right here, be careful. See that tight little opaque white line right there? You'll see some areas on his glove where I quite didn't get the blue erased properly. That's good though. I think I can get his fingers and his thumb to be a little better. Getting some nice opaque white stipples. Right there. Some sewing machine stroke right there. I rinse my brush every now and then. It'll get dry in there because we're working so dry. Up a little bit more white. Get these knuckles. Rotate the model to facilitate the correct angle. Nice and white right there, just another top coat. And we did all the white in the first session, so now I'm just making sure I'm just spot checking it. Kind of reshaping lines. Some stipple heart pull right there. Leaving that nice shadow intact that is in line with his forearm. And that was just an exercise in subtraction. So here, let's just make sure we have some final perfectly opaque whites right here. See that? And we left the shadows through that subtraction process intact on his back. Again, they're kind of in line with the back muscles. Let's make sure the fingers and thumbs look good here. Because when I painted the daggers, I'm sure I got some paint on his fingers that shouldn't have gotten there. And white can be a little challenging. For sure. We have to get away. Like to cultivate that opacity you're looking for. Got the little ankle bone right here. See that? Just making sure he looks his best with some final inspections. Because like I said, white, can be like that. You think it's opaque and then you look a couple minutes later and it's not. Because what we don't want is the white to be gray. We want the shadows to be gray. Okay, that's the big hang up. Okay, a little bit here. And let's just ramp up the opacity. Some stipples. And as I said, you see we're leaving some shadows. And if you really look at those shadows for a second, you see how they are in line with his chest muscles. And they're actually there in the divots of those rings. Like they flex around his muscles. He's like in a total rubber suit. And the way we did this was we airbrushed him in blue, built up his values, right? So everything was already this dark blue. So we just mixed dark blue with white and kind of just did a couple of passes until we got to white and left some shadow work intact. Just negative space, right? Rinse the brush off a little bit, right? Not a paint side, vacuum sealed rubber suit. That's right. He is straight up in a vacuum sealed rubber suit. I'm going to use my eyes and just kind of further inspect these ammo pouches. And make sure that they're not too sloppy from the side angles. Nope. I'm looking for no. I'm looking for a paintbrush. It's like basically brand new, but also soft and not conditioned to a stiff point. Because there's some dust on this guy. I want to get rid of it. There's like a little speck right there in his leg. I'm wondering if it's a splatter. There's one right there in the shadow of his abs. And it cut, oh, yeah, it just came off. Fucking static electricity or some shit. Try to get that stuff off before I varnish the guy, you know what I'm saying? Because then that fucking shadow just lives there forever. Or the speckle. So I think we're good. Pretty happy with it. Maybe right here. This, where his belt comes around the side here. Oh, yeah, look. See, the shadows are kind of shit right there. Gotta just inspect the viewing angles. All right, call it quits. I think we're good. I think everything I do from this point on is just, you know what? As soon as I say that and I turn the light up brighter, I see here I could do a better job. Oh, and then I fucked up. Got a little white above the belt, or above the boot. That I shouldn't have got there. Honestly, his boots and feet are the culprits. So what I have to do now is fix. I have to go back to a quick pin wash. Rico, imagine how hot it would be wearing these superhero suits. Oh my god, it's just gross. Sealing the flavor. Belly. I know a long time back you were fond of using tire black and rubber highlights from Secret Weapon. Have you moved on from that and just started making your own versions using the technique? Mainly, I just use Monument Hobbies paints now. That's the line of paints I 99% use. And tire black is just like black with some like green and blue in it. It's just, you can make it yourself. Let's take a little transparent black. And let's carefully put a black line between his boots and his calf again. kind of erase my mistake. And I'll reinforce right here. All right, now we're good. Call it quits. He's got his throwing daggers. His white looks good. His face is maniacal. He's grinning. I love him. Actually, I ended up really liking Bullseye. I thought I was going to be I thought he was, again, I fell victim to the box art where I was like, I wasn't even sure I was going to paint him. I was actually pretty sure I wasn't. But now that I'm done with him, I fucking love him.